There I am. My name is Swiz, here as always to answer your questions, talk about my team. It's Thursday night, teams are out, so there's always a lot to discuss. Thank you for those who have already jumped on. Do appreciate your ongoing support. As always, support us via YouTube, Spotify, and Twitter. Get in contact with us, Supercoach Insider 100 or Swiz26, Chris and Ben. Obviously, always around as well to check out the content that they put out. To the people who've been asking about Spotify, been trying to put some stuff up. Unfortunately, the last thing I loaded up didn't come out great with quality, but we usually try to put up our group pods up there. It's a little bit hard with our individual pods because we're so visual and we like to talk about our team. So it does make it a little bit harder, but it is what it is. And we do try to work on it. All right. Hey, Callum, straight away. Thanks for jumping in, mate. Always appreciate anybody who wants to leave a comment about your team. So I'll just firstly go through what's happening with the AFL teams because now that they have actually come out, and then we'll go from there and we can answer, or I can answer your questions because there is obviously a lot going on. So I'm pretty sure full teams should be released right now. So let's go have a look here and see what we have presented. For me, for those who haven't seen or didn't get an opportunity to see earlier what was going on with my team, but I'll go through. I appreciate that. I'll just say that everyone drop a like. Beautiful. Always appreciate a like and a subscribe. But yeah, I am going to be boosting this week, so I'll go in through that. But we'll just talk about the teams first because that's probably the most important thing. So we know about Collingwood and Brisbane. The sub will be coming out soon, but side bottoms obviously managed. Noble, not a lot's happening from a Collingwood point of view, but Brisbane was probably the big one. Jared Lyons being omitted. So I know a few people are getting in him. Did look pretty good. The issue naturally was Neil was out, so he was the obvious replacement. So them being on the emergency this week is so I think you've got to hold him. A few people are like, "What do I do with him?" It's $250K. It's on the bench. You can't even loophole him, and they're fair questions. I guess if it's the only way you can get a trade done, but yeah, he'll get his opportunity at some point throughout the year. It just unfortunately isn't right now, and especially the fact that he's only one more game from being on the bubble, break even of -41. At any point, either a Neil, McCluggage, one of those inside mids, Dunkley could miss, and then he'll just come back in, and you'd be absolutely so frustrated if that happened in a week or two. Even worse, next week against North Melbourne, very easily could go 100, and if he, they've got him projected. If he goes 71, he goes up 50K. So it's probably the only good thing if you're a non-owner, because if hypothetically there was a long-term injury, to touch wood, because we never like seeing that, but if there was a long-term injury and Brisbane got that, and their Lions was just the obvious to come in, he's the perfect cash cow, but just unfortunately not for this week. So frustrating there. North Melbourne Cup. So this is actually the first time I'm seeing these teams too, guys. So I've just had my sister over, so she was just visiting, so I had to kick her out of the house so I come chat to you guys. But nothing huge there from a Carlton North Melbourne point of view. If we have a look at the teams, Toby Pink, a lot of people are looking at getting him just because there's not a lot else. I don't mind it so much. You wouldn't get out of him 50s, so it's not a terrible trade in. Tom Powell named on the interchange bench. The good thing is no Phillips, and it's not even on the emergency, so that was the only worry there. Simkin named in the midfield. I don't think it's the end of the world, but yeah, our man Powell, who's a very popular choice in this week. For the Blue Baggers, where is Carroll named on the bench so far? So you'd think maybe Boyd, Cottrell, Durden might be the sub there. So no real worries there. Now, here's the big one. So this will change what I do because Sam Berry is out omitted. So I was kind of waiting for teams to be there. So Sam Berry, thank you for your service in my team. That'll get changed, and I'll have to update that trade soon. So is Berry even on? Yeah, he's on the emergency, but couldn't care less. He fumbled at key points last week, so it was probably better than him being named and then starting as the sub. But yeah, that's been really frustrating because he was given every opportunity as the fourth banana. He was winning the contest. He was getting first to the ball, but just to how the guys would fumble like that. So unfortunately, Sam Berry, it's a real disappointing situation there for owners. Thank you for all those guys sending in questions. I'll get to them soon. Obviously, I'm running through this. Essendon, St Kilda, Max King, he's a kind of an interesting one come next week. He's scoring really well. Missing the Esther game hurts a little bit because he probably could have gone pretty well in that match just because of the Bombers and their outs. Parish Redmond back in is obviously huge for the Bombers. So interesting again, see how Martin goes now that Redmond's back in and see if that has any effect there. If you've still got him, feel free. You could definitely hold Nick Martin for sure. It's just about him cleaning up his disposal. That's the big one. Sean Maker is named on the emergency list. Need to watch him. But the big in there is Angus Hasty. I was actually looking through a group chat before, and they the boys were talking about him, saying he was going to get named this week, which is good on for the young kid. So I think he picked 33. What more else can I tell you about young Hasty? I don't actually know a lot about him, which is unfortunately maybe somebody else out there outside. Like I think he took a pretty good mark in the preseason game. I'm pretty sure he's a mid-sized defender, about 190 centimeters. So it probably comes in there. And but being a first gamer, do they make him the sub or do they go with Zach Jones again? That's quite possible. As well. Port Adelaide, Melbourne, nothing really there. Like Stephen May, it's more for your draft if you have him there. But outside of that, Billings is named on the interchange bench, same as Hoare. You'd hope it's Woden. Just looking at those interchange things, it's not like they're going to start Ben Brown as the sub. You wouldn't think they'd start Petty, just especially with May being out. So do they go Billings again? Surely not. Hoare, that'd be frustrating. Maybe because the extra tall, because they do have McDonald, Lever, Tomlinson's not in, so you think it'd probably be Woden, but a bit nervous there with Hoare being named for the Port Power. Drew, we don't like seeing him in the midfield. Ollie Wines is named there, so hopefully Wines gets as much midfield time as he can. For the Bulldogs, big one is, and the one that I was talking about the other day, Bont, he has been named. Still need to probably monitor. McRae is on that extended bench. So they've got actually a very interesting extended bench. The Doggies, Caleb Daniel, be interesting to see if he survives. But you would think out of them, Poulter probably doesn't. Neither does James O'Donnell and maybe Garcia. So do they go Daniel, Darcy, Duray, Lobb, McRae? Like McRae had 47 touches last week in the VFL. Probably maybe Lobb's the one that actually also gets left out, and maybe they do play Garcia or Poulter instead. But there's kind of quite interesting with Caleb Daniel. Be interesting to see what his future is. And so same with Jack McRae next year. Gaff's on the extended bench. I'm just trying to think. Harry Burnett. That's if you've got Gold Coast and GWS players, you'll be right anyway. But people who may be trying to loophole Barnett as their R3 position just need to watch that, monitor to make sure he's not in the final team. But you should really be loopholing your vice captain with a Gold Coast or a Giants player just to take out that risk. My boys playing the Swannies. We've got Sonzi now. This is actually important because he is one that we are definitely looking at. So named on the extended bench. Hopefully he gets in. In a perfect world, actually, I was hoping he'd get one more week in the VFL and then he can come in after that because that would suit my team better. But he's the one kind of through loophole I want to actually replace Gipkus with and bring Sonzi in. So I was really hoping it would be he wouldn't come in until around the dual position, and then Roberts or Sexton could, if I held one of them, which most likely would be Roberts, could go back, and then Sonzi can come into the forward line because he will be a handy little one there. And Tom Brown is the other one. I had some questions about him today. I know, Tom Brown named in the back line, so he looked pretty good. Obviously, he had that late game last year, so he might be one for us next week. We get a free look at him before maybe getting that defender. So some people trying to go a little bit early with Pink. Just keep Tom. If you've got nothing better to do and you're watching Richmond Sydney, that just probably number 30 for the Tigers. That's the one right there. Actually, Fremantle, I think we didn't get a change, so Warmer is still out. He's not even named on the extended bench. And then Hawthorn Geelong, I don't think we'll have teams for that because it is the Monday game. All right, let's chuck it back on my team, and then we'll get into these questions, guys. So that's what's happening. It's not a big carnage, probably just the ones of us who do have Mr. Berry there. So that does change a couple of things for me, but I can live with that. All righty, let's have a look what people are saying. Thank you so much. We've got quite a few on in the chat, so I do appreciate that, guys. All right, here we go. Ben, I have Hewitt. Do you reckon it's worth sidewaysing him to Crouch? Oh, it's a tough one because Hewitt's playing North Melbourne, so I'm not completely sold on Crouch. If I'm completely honest, yeah, okay, he's playing midfield. The debate we had this week was, okay, so the Crows, their draw coming up is not great. Like they have a lot of more winnable games after round 5. So the season's not done, even if they start 0-5. But Freo this week, D's at home, which they'd be hoping is a home game, be more competitive, but the D's can definitely get them there. Then they've got to play the Blues away, so they could potentially be 0-5. Now, Crouch in that could still be going 110. So you don't think that go, okay, season's over, 0-5. They're going to keep fighting their way through it. But after that, they do have winnable games. Essendon, North Melbourne, they've got the Showdown, the Lions. That's not how. Actually, they've got 3 weeks, which is really hard. Showdown, Lions, and then Pies, and then it opens back up, Eagles, Hawks, Tigers. But if they are in a situation where, again, they're 2-8 coming around the bye, do they try to change things up? Is it Dawson or Laird that drops back and they keep Crouch there? But then, if they want to get games, do they try to give another go to Sam Berry? Do they want Rankin, Rochelle getting time in there? So I have a couple concerns with the Crows, because if they slump as bad as what I think they potentially could, and here's a team where the South Australia media's gone, they're all in with Matthew Nicks, they've got to make finals. If they start as bad as I think they could, could they be forced to make changes? And is Crouch one of those changes, or is it Laird and Dawson? You always think the captain's probably going to play there, but we know Laird and Dawson can go behind the ball. So I'd want another free look there at Hewitt. Like the Blues, we know Walsh is still out. Then you're probably not going to get a better free hit than playing North Melbourne. And that's no disrespect to the Roos, but we know where they are. He's named in the guts. He's going to play guts. So Hewitt could definitely match Crouch this week. And then do you then have another look at somebody else? I know then it might be not hard to get the money up, but if you don't have a Flanders, if there's, you might be able to get a situation next week where you could get Hewitt up to Tuke Miller, and Tuke Miller's draw is so good coming up. So we were kind of running up going, okay, if you couldn't get yourself up to Tom Green next week, what's the best alternative? Is it to go Jack Steele this week? Is it, who's that sort of guy in the 500,000 mark? And for those who haven't explored the Suns draw as much as like probably what we have, definitely somebody I would prefer to hold Crouch off to then look at them. So just going through the Suns draw quickly for those who haven't seen. So the next week's a tough one because they come back and play the Giants. Okay, fair enough. But then from there, it kind of is up and down, but I don't think it's going to worry Took so much. But then they do play the Hawks. They got the Swans at the SCG, which, funny enough, the Suns have a ridiculous record there. I don't know exactly if it's 3 of the last 4 games they've won there, but they always seem to win in Sydney. If you're a Sydney supporter, you probably know that better, but they always just seem to get up. And it's always the case that the Swans seem to be 5 goals up at quarter time, and the Suns always seem to win that. And then Took plays against West Coast. They got the I don't know what they call it up there, but the Q Clash. Then North Melbourne. And they've also got like Essendon and St Kilda coming into their bye, and they've also then played North Melbourne, West Coast, Richmond on the run home again. So the Suns have a ridiculous draw compared to everybody else. So yeah, I'd actually hold Hewitt, hold him for a week, see what happens. Everyone dropping light. Everyone dropping light. We've gone that. Thank you so much. Worth going Young to Heaney. See, there's a part of me that thinks Heaney's still potentially a trade out leading into his bye, depending on who is available. But there might be just so many other different forward options. The hard thing with the Swans is, like Mills is going to be obviously a longer out, but there's Parker, Taylor Adams, the big 2, and how do they sit in that situation when they come in? Why Warner at the why they're out Heaney in that midfield looks good. Now there's a big chance that they come back and Heaney just stays in the guts. Is there? But and with the forwards this year, is he just so far the standout because we gathered Jackson, at some point we'll have Darcy coming back. And so really, is it just Heaney and Flanders are the standouts and there's really no one else? And then you kind of need him. But then if those guys come back, does Heaney then start playing forward? He comes back, say he's a 95 guy. Yeah, it's still great, but for this year. But are there other guys who could potentially just get 90 anyway and save some coin? Is there better options for you to potentially go this week? And if you're trying to trade Young to Heaney, that probably means you're going to have to then put an extra rookie into your back line. So isn't it better to probably try to fill in another defender? Now that some of the defenders aren't great, but Dacos, Stewart, Ryan, Sheasel look like the big four. And then you're hoping maybe Nazaya, Wanganeen, Malira, who looks really good, big on him on the preseason, can sort of get up there close to that top six. Sicily's going to drop down in price at some point. So I feel like people are going to jump on him at the right time. So yeah, if you don't have any of those sort of main four that I kind of mentioned, yeah, maybe you kind of look at that. So I don't think it's be all and end all, but the only issue then with Heaney is it's the Tigers this week, and we saw what Butters did to Heaney. Butters did to Richmond, sorry. And then they've got West Coast. So it probably does make me saying that sway maybe more into that. It's just there's just question marks, and sometimes you jump on, you just swallow the whole pride. Like, okay, yeah, I've missed 2 of his good scores, but yeah, you're gonna have 2 scores out of him. Is there a left field move that you could make? I'm just trying to think. Is there a midfielder that you could get on that could match Heaney at the same time, and then he doesn't have the bye? Is it the fact that if you don't have Sarong with Butters, LDU, any of them who don't have a bye coming up, who can definitely, if not just match Heaney, go better than him during these couple games, and then come Heaney's bye for round 5, you've actually got a player playing. So yeah, I think maybe there's a potential there to void because you're only going to get 2 games before the bye anyway. And he's, Richmond, West Coast, yeah, soft run, but after that, then it does get a bit harder. Instead of a defender, and as I said there, I kind of prefer the defender. Trade Dawson or Bonner. Definitely at T, I think it's Bonner, even though the role's pretty good still. It's just because now we talked about what happens when Sinclair comes back. The bigger issue is with Dawson. Like he still played well last week. He laid 12 tackles. He went head to head against Dangerfield. And I kind of like the fact that for a lot of the game, they did go head to head. And because he was kind of trying to negate him around stoppages, he had the 12 tackles. Brilliant. He still got it 26 possessions. So what more are we wanting from a kind of a gun midfield? He's getting 26 touches and having 12 tackles. Like that's super for any player in the game. The only problem was last week is Dawson absolutely butchered the ball. And that was a little bit because of the connection up the forward line and the fact that I don't know what game plan the Crows had going, but it was like kick it to Tom Stewart. Like if you're Tom Stewart last week, I'd love to know Tom Stewart and his review of his line coach. It's like, they'd be having the greatest chuckle about the fact that they just kept bombing it to him all day long. So disposal efficiency 62, the 5 turnovers, a couple of them were really bad, but he did everything right. The meters gain was fine. Pressure acts was great. So yeah, I'm definitely keeping Dawson. I know we get a bit reactional because the scores aren't great, but even though, as I said, their draw might not be the greatest at the moment, we know he can turn around. He's the captain. He's got a lead for them. So he's and even last year, I think there was like the second half, I think it was sort of in thirds. So Dawson was probably, I think he was like 105, 110, maybe he was 110 starting the year, 115. Then he had a middle patch where he just went awesome, and then I think he kind of went back to maybe a 105-ish off the top of my head. So you're going to get up and down with all premiums. Like everyone's just looking. Well, this is the thing, and we went through the group chat this week, and we were talking about players who have averaged 130 in Supercoach. And since in the last 17 seasons, only 12 players have averaged over 130, and 2 of them were in the COVID year. So, and I think so. I had the list. It was like Gary Ablett Jr.'s done it 4 times. You've got like Dangerfield twice. Grundy's done it twice. Pretty sure BJ Goddard was in there. But yeah, a lot of players get close, but the start of the season, you have a lot of guys come out, bang, 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 average 130, 140. But there's it just in the history of Supercoach, it just doesn't happen. They don't keep this up. So, those players, they'll come down because that naturally happens. Those guys who are probably struggling a little bit at the moment, who are premiums, they'll have their moments and they'll have their big game, or they'll come up with the right matchup, and then their average gets boosted. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of trading out the uber premiums unless there's sort of an injury or complete role change. Hoare or Pink, I think it's just going to be Pink. As much as I've got Hoare, it's at least it's going to probably be reliable 50s. He's not going to be. He's going to get his 10 possessions each week, take a couple of marks, maybe lay a couple of tackles, get his 50. Hoare, the worry is, could he be sub? It is. I think Hoare's 1 week's going to go 10 and the next week go 90. His score's going to be all over the shop, depending on what role and who's in and who's out. But yeah, Pink, yeah, it's kind of just a bit more reliable. So we'll go that. Hey, Cliff. So we've seen some coaches have burnt through 5 trades. Is that too much? Yeah, well, I'll be on 5 trades this week. So not so much. I feel like we burnt trades early last year. There's a couple of people actually sent me their team. It was quite interesting because they're like, oh, I need to get this player and that player. But they'd actually got everything right with their team so far. They had nowhere to really move. So sometimes it's not bad getting a couple of things wrong because there's a couple of hype players who could turn out really well. And then they have no way to get them in because their players are performing pretty well, not worth the trade out. So, yeah, no problems with the 5. You always get this situation where most people on the bubble, before we had boosts, we'd always use 2 trades. Usually 2 trades round 3, 2 trades round 4. There might be a correction trade here or there. So yeah, you usually use that same amount of trades. The great thing is it's 40 this year. It's not 30 and 25, 20 that we've had in the past. So there's not as many issues with that. Hey, Michael, do you mind ranking Dempsey, Carroll, and Sharp? Worried about the last 2 named on the bench with players returning for their teams. Worried about that. Yeah, the job security versus the stunt catch gen. And it's a great point because what's kind of more important. And we're talking about Carroll today in the group chat versus Sharp. So I guess I'll touch on those 2 because they're both the midfielders. I've got Sharp ahead just because, like Carroll, he looks like a much better scorer. And if I knew that, let's just hypothetically say Chera or Hewitt were going to be out also, and no, Carroll was going to be that next guy in, I'd have complete faith in Carroll because he looks great. Obviously been in the system a couple of extra years, but what kind of happens when Walsh comes in, Martin comes in? I think he's still around in that team, but does he, potentially become the sub? Is he having to play like a forward role? Because obviously there's so many mouths to feed at Carlton. They've got so many good players. You got Matthew Kennedy pushing in a half forward. Like Kennedy can play midfield. Like Lockie Fogarty can get up around the ball. They've got Elijah Hollands, he was a star junior. He can get up around the ball as well. So they've got so many options in there. So that's kind of more my worry with Carroll, where, Sharp's named off the bench, but they've named Hayden Young on like the wing. Surely Hayden Young goes back. Like Hayden Young's not playing wing. He's either playing in the guts or he's playing in the half back line, even with Draper in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if that changes. Like Weed, sort of a mirror. I think he's more the sub person. I'm trying to think where he kind of fits in. Yeah, they got Bailey Banfield too. He's probably another option for the sub. Matt Johnson again. Matt Johnson's more, I look at him more playing sort of around the ball, inside midfielder. He plays the wing role all right, but yeah, I think they've brought Sharp in for a reason. The Sharp at Optus Stadium, that's where he's probably games there. He's going to be at his best. So I can't see them putting Sharp as the sub. So watch that happen. Longmuir was probably watching this and going, I'm going to stitch you boys up and put him as the sub. Like all the reports about Dempsey, like Dempsey looked fantastic. He's linking up, doing everything right. So I've got quite a bit of faith in Dempsey because the Cats, as I talked about last week, have to put games in these kids. Hawkins might not still be his last year, but he's turning 36. Congratulations to Tommy Hawkins, 350 games as well. So that's a brilliant effort. So yeah, congratulations. But he's got to retire soon. They've got guys that need to retire. They've got to keep getting games in these young fellas, and why they're there. Like It's much easier as a Dempsey coming in while you've still got Hawkins and Cameron there, because he can come in, learn the game, learn his craft, do what he needs to do, instead of like some of the lower teams. This is always hard. Wardlaw, Sheasel, they come in and playing brilliant, but they don't have the same support around them. So it does make it really difficult for them. So yeah, how do you manage that? So yeah, I think Dempsey's job security is better. As a forward, he's always going to have sort of up and down games, but yeah, I think from a job security point of view, Dempsey's is probably the best, then Sharp, then Carroll. Scoring point of view, it's probably the opposite, but I'll take job security over scoring. Because even though it's best 18 at the moment, we've got this week, gather round, and then a couple more weeks of best 18. I'd kind of want these rookies to play a little bit longer than that. So they're going to have to become important. If you've probably got a full bench at the moment, maybe you can probably carry a couple guys for the better scoring. And in a perfect world, if you can get them all in, people have sent me teams and they've got all three of them. And it's like, great. I've currently got none, which has got me a little bit worried. And potentially what I might even do with this trade is bring one of them in. But there is that North Melbourne guy in Tommy Powell that I'm pretty big on, and I kind of do want to keep in my side. To Brian, does Lob chop into English's minute? Well, we've got to see if Lob's named yet. But if he is, well, of course he will. But how much? Like the hard thing is they've got so many tools. I'm more worried about Darcy. And yeah, this is going to be a real interesting one for the Eagles, because they got stitched up by them last year, cost them finals. So that's why I think they want Bont playing, Libba playing, or English, all of them out there, because they don't want to rest them, give the Eagles more motivation. And then if the same thing happens as it did last year, Bevo may as well not come in on Monday. But if the Doggies get up by 10 goals halftime, halfway through the third, who's getting subbed if they don't have an injury? Is it English? And then they let Lob and Darcy play out the game. If Lob gets named, is it Bont? And they go, okay, we'll put the captain on ice because we don't really need you to get risk against if we've got such a big lead. So these are all things that are going to come into a bit of account. And even though I've got the captaincy on Bont at the moment, and I know a few people going, Bont's going 200 this week, kind of a little bit worried about that. There's a couple. I hope Sarong goes absolutely nuts. I like Sarong, Butters, even Heaney, probably a little bit better than Bont this week just because of that issue. So we got to wait till final teams. If they name Lob, well, of course he's going to take minutes off. He's not, well, we'll just have to wait and see if they play English out. And very much, if it's not Bont getting subbed, it could be English. But if English is out there the whole game, he could be on for 200. Like, he's probably a better one to vice captain, English vice captain into Heaney if you've got both of them. Hey Kev, always good to hear from a fellow cricketer, mate. Hope you're well. Sam, should I trade Grundy for Cherry? Yeah, see, now this is a good one. And I've had this question even from a couple of people who I usually try to take advice off them because I know they're very good super coaches, lucky enough to have some great chats. Now, the thing so Laddams, where was he? He was named on the extended bench. So let's not get too carried away there. I feel like that's just the case because all teams are meant to have a ruckman on their emergency. So probably Laddams will be the emergency. So I don't think they're going to share time. McDonald, Joel Marty are still in. So Hayden McLean's still in. So can't see them playing the extra tour. Now, but just the actual question of Grundy down the Cherry. The thing is, there's two parts to this. So you've got Cherry, who's 100K cheaper. And if he keeps going pretty well, like if he scores 90s, 100s, 105, like he probably gets up to 500K, does a reasonable job, stays within touch of probably all the other ruckmen that most people have outside of English. But you can actually use that money to do something with. And if that's what it needs for you to, like, for example, somebody's like, I'm 100K short. The only thing I can do is Grundy down to Cherry to get that trade that I need to do. And that the difference might be, say, they're getting Jack Steele versus Zach Butters. And as much as I don't mind Steele's jaw, and I think it'd be very good, like Zach Butters, awesome. So I can understand that's what they're debating around, or the difference between them getting, say, Ryan or Stewart, or, like maybe it's Wanganeen Malira or something like that. So they want one of the other premiums. So I can understand why people are considering it. And the fact that Grundy does have a buy coming up, yeah, if you don't have Jackson to cover and you want full premium, yeah, I can understand that as well. The flip side to that is it's Grundy's draw. So, yeah, okay, he didn't go so well last week, only the 99, but still, yeah, it's 99. And it's against the Bombers who, Goldstein's still a pretty good ruck, even at his age. Like, he's been one of the best rucks. I talked about that 130 before. Like, Goldie's pretty close on that list. Like, I think he might have been the top super coach scorer. Oh, it's one of the years in maybe 2012, 13, 14, one of those years, but he just missed the 130. So, like, he's been a superstar. So he's not an absolute pushover. But after that, Grundy's got Richmond this week and then West Coast next week. So if we're talking about Tim English having a field day, what could Grundy potentially do against West Coast as well? He didn't have a great game against Darcy Cameron, but it's his old club as well. So, there's potential Grundy could go really well there. So I'm not going out of my way. I'm not doing the trade just for the sake of doing the trade. And I'm not doing it worrying about Laddams. I'm only doing it if you're in that position where you've got pretty well everyone else, and the only thing you can see to make that trade to get Young or Wines or whoever else it is to get up to that super premium is that, it's pretty good. Hey, Dave, show us your dog. He was in here before, actually, little Maxie. He's. I think he better be having a rest right now because he's running around like a mad dog. Thoughts on Yo? I'm not trading him in. If you started him, well done, congratulations. But there's no way I'm trading him in because it's going to be two trades. He'll get injured at some point for sure. But he looks great in the role and it always was. Like, playing midfield was always going to start well. But I just didn't want to take. I'm happy to take the risk more on that Fife because of him being cheaper. There's more scope for him to make price. Yo, I just couldn't bring myself to go there. But if Yo keeps playing, congrats. But I'm not trading in on him. No way. Grimo, how are you, mate? Now, he talking about legends that I regularly speak to. This is the man, the myth, the legend right here. Should we be taking what Nick said seriously, Ari, Luke Ryan? Yeah. So Stewart against Hawthorn, I think, Porks are probably aren't going to put much attention in there. Stewart will zone off and do what he does. In a perfect world, like, I'm thinking Ryan could just smash the Crows, but there's no way the Crows can let Ryan do what Stewart did last week. What was it, 10, 11 intercept marks? Like, there's no way they can just bomb it to him all day long. It's just not going to happen. So, I feel like Stewart probably is the better option this week. I know the break even is different. So you're hoping to jump on Ryan this week. He goes well. He's going to go up in cash. But Stewart's like break even 120. If he gets like 100, he drops. So I get the price reasons. But from a player that I kind of want more long term, Tommy Stewart's as reliable as anybody. And we know Stewart does still have a ceiling. Like, why couldn't Stewart come out and score 130, 140, 150 against the Hawks? This is the thing where I think this happened last year. So I was on the Gold Coast. Went to the Suns versus Geelong game, and Tommy Stewart had I think a pretty big break even to start off the season, and he may have been 150, 160. Like, he had a ridiculous game, and we were all backing on because usually he's not good at interstate. And he just absolutely blew his break even out of the water. I think he did that the year before. He came into it was a game against Freo, and his break even was huge. And then came out and scored like 170, 180. Like, Tommy Stewart just has this knack of doing that. Every time his break even looks like, oh, great, he's going to have an 80 here and drop cash, and we're going to get him for like 580, 570. He just comes out and has this massive score. And the Hawks, their forward line wasn't great last week. Their delivery into their forward line was awful. The only potential saving grace is could they send McGuinness to him, but I don't think they're going to stop that. Like, I feel like the only way Stewart probably doesn't score well, which is potential if Geelong just dominate the game and the ball doesn't spend that much time down there, and that's potentially a possibility. But Stewart's usually still good enough to get intercept marks. He loves playing the G. He loves playing Easter Monday. So I feel like you could flip a coin either way. If you've got the extra 30K, you could probably go the safety of Stewart. Like, people who've been sending me their teams, and they got Dacos, Stewart, Sheasel, that just looks as safe as houses. Ryan, there's always question marks also about his body. I think he's a superstar. I love Ryan, but I probably prefer just that safer option in Stewart. And yeah, and then if he was to get tagged, or they like, who could they put attention in? Could they potentially? This is the question before about Dawson. Like, they were looking more at Dangerfield, but who the Crows this week? Could they? The fact that they're playing Freo, could Dawson go forward as the captain and do some sort of number on there, and then they play maybe another midfielder in? Trying to think who else they've actually got down there, because Pedler probably wasn't the person. But maybe if he's not getting the ball, maybe they just say to someone like Pedler, just go lock down on this guy, give him nothing. And we know Ryan can drop the stinker, like all defenders can. But he's got more consistent. But like every player, if you're getting attention and tagged and you're not used to it, especially if you're a defender, that could be interesting. I'm not going to put anybody off picking Ryan or Stewart, but I've probably the safety, just because Stewart's got like a brilliant history of doing it. A Wizard of Oz, out Dawson, short Caulfield, in Ryan, Sheasel, Carroll. Yeah, I just thought, like, I nearly prefer to just keep Dawson, but I get why people are getting a Ryan. And as Grimo just said, that's the worry. Like, I like the idea of short to Sheasel, fantastic. Caulfield to Carroll, and I guess that's the only way you can do it, by moving both. Like, if that's the only way you can get Carroll in, maybe. But then, as I said earlier, Carroll's job security, it's not going to be great. Like, he's going to make probably 100. I feel like all these rookies in the same boat. Sure, Sharp, Carroll, Dempsey, maybe Dempsey slightly more, but I feel like they're all going to make 110, 120K, which is probably similar to what Tom Powell could make with the CBAs. That's why I kind of a little bit hotter on Powell, just because of those, the fact that he's got the amount of CBAs that he's been getting. But I may have to reconsider that, just because of the way the teams have been named. My trades are Young, Caulfield, and Lazaro. To Massimo, Pink, and Powell. Got literally no issue with that. Did actually Lazaro survive the selection? I know some people were talking about him not being in, and I didn't actually look at it. No, North haven't made a change. Where is Lazaro in there? He's named on the half-forward line. Yeah, some people are saying he could have got dropped this week, so he has survived. That's one thing. But definitely, I've got no problem with those trades. Hitsky traded in Dacos last week. Better pay me back. Yeah, that was awful. Absolutely awful. And the worst thing was, because I was chatting to you guys, so I'm not really paying attention to my team. And one of those things, I walked out and saw them doing the pregame. I'm not paying any attention to the time at all. And so I'm watching them do the great thing for Danny Frawley, mental health, brilliant, no problems. And on a serious point there, guys, anytime, shoot out DMs and myself, people in the chat, whatever. If you are struggling, everybody goes through shit. We all know that. Reach out, seek some help, seek some advice, anything like that. So anyway, they're going through that. On what I've gone in, I've got the TV on. Oh yeah. Go down to change my team. And because I've been fiddling around talking to you guys, I had Dacos VC. And I'm like, hang on, why can't I move? And then I'm looking at the time going, oh my God, it's after 7:30. But yeah. And I don't know who it was. It may have been JG, who's been on the show before, saying, has everybody else been finding the fact that, the AFL has been saying, okay, games are starting at this time, but they're actually, like, the bounce will happen 3 or 4 minutes afterwards. But then Supercoach is locked out. And I know a few of us, because we like to watch to see, like, the last minute swap of players to see who's walking with somebody. So if I know Winghagers or McGuinness is walking to Dacos, I'm not VCing him. But I want to see that. But then if they're not bouncing the ball to 7:33 and lockouts at 7:30, it takes out any way of doing that. I know, maybe we're too fallen in our Supercoach doing that, but yeah. Grimo, who are your top 8 mids? Seems like we're going to have to leave some very good players out, and potentially. And there'll be moments where we'll go up and down. Players are going to get on runs. It always happens. Like Bonts, I haven't, compared to what I had originally in the season, but let's kind of, I'm just trying to get up the mids here to kind of think about that. So we've got Bont, Green, Butters, Sarong. I think they're probably the big 4. They look like the big 4. So I'm pretty happy owning now all 4 of them. I've got no problems with that. I think then we kind of got this blanket on who's joining them. Like, LDU's got the potential to go there. It's just a question of his body, but it wouldn't surprise me if he got close to that, like 120. Laird's flying 122. We know Laird's done it before. can he? I don't think, as I said, Crouch keeps it up, but can he keep it up there? Tuke Miller, Jack Steele, these guys have done it before as well. Can they get close to 120? Zach Merritt, like I know I only seen a couple teams with him in, and usually we pick him up cheaper, but he has kicked off the season in fine form, looks fantastic, by far looks Essendon's best player. Does that change a little bit with Parrish coming back in? If Merritt keeps going, like Merritt's always up there in the top 10. So you've got to have him. And then I haven't even mentioned the two Melbourne boys in Petrarca and Oliver. Like, okay, Oliver is, I still think, name. So that is something. Where are we here? Yeah, Oliver's still in that midfield. Like Clary, if he gets more fitness into him, he could be up there. We know Track how much of a gun he is. And then that's without then mentioning Goulden, the Brisbane boys, and then the Suns like Rao as well, like flying at the moment. So there could be a situation where there's probably 4 or 5 like Ubers, and then there's probably a group that's that next rack back that we always have, who might be the difference between sort of them 5 to or 6 best midfielder to like 12, 15 might, only be a couple points, 3 or 4 points. So yeah, as you said, there's going to be some good players left out of our midfields. And sometimes those kind of more value options, like, we've all got on Bont and the reliable captain and that. But if you kind of passed off Bont and put that 100K into getting, one of the sort of, it maybe it was a Wines at a time up to say Tuke, and Tuke can get within, 5 points of Bont. Well, that money saved might have, it might have actually helped you in another area. And throughout the year, he might have actually have had a just as good of a year. Maybe Tuke's not the great example because he had that extra buy, but some of these guys could really rival some of these other top guys, and the point gap might not be that massive, and potentially maybe one of them gets that 130 mark. Like you're not going to see it like a bunch of them at 130. Like at best, you're going to see a group at like 120, 125, but most are probably going to come back to that 115 to 120. So I think at different points it'll even out throughout the year. My good buddy Chris, can't wait to catch up with you next week, mate. I am absolutely champing at the bit. So I'm off to Queensland next week. At the moment, I'm actually working next Thursday evening, so I'm trying to bring that back so I can podcast before that. But if not, I may even podcast up in Queensland on Friday while I'm up there to try to do a bit of a Q&A session and stuff. But looking forward to it. So lead them straight back to 10th spot. Right. I don't have either Massimo or Powell. How important do you reckon is to get both of them? I think you need probably one. Massimo, I'm really warming to the fact that he could be one of the best cash cows. Like Hawthorn. So what happened last week was Sam Mitchell's tried to get them play a bit more slower, chipping the ball, take the pace out of the game. Melbourne's such a good team, professional, set up for it all day long. Ball gets rebounded back, Melbourne kick a goal. And all the commentators, media have been saying it all week. So he's obviously put in a game plan. Young players go, yep, this is what the coach wants us to do. They implement it, but they just take it to the nth degree. And then so it'll be a fact that Sam Mitchell needs to train it back and say, okay, no, guys, I don't want you to be as full on with what you're doing. I just want you to, maybe do it at 20%, 30% of what it was last week. But the fact that Sam Mitchell was trying to implement a kind of slower ball movement, chipping it around, and Massimo was great. He was getting on the end of a lot of marks. So I feel like there's going to be part of that game style coming in. And I think that's going to be very good for him. Like he definitely can go 85s. And he's going to make cash for us. And like some of these other rookies, I think they're going to be around the mix. But Massimo, why couldn't he make sort of 250, 300K if he gets the right games? Like we've already seen the fact that he's gone over 100. If he gets a couple more games like that, happy days. So I think he's more than definitely Powell. But the issue with Powell, if they don't have anybody else taking these CBAs off him, and it's literally LDU Powell with Wardlord, Simpkin, Sheetsel as the supporting cast, which every team has supporting cast. So Powell just keeps going in there, even if it's a tougher draw. Midfield, you're going to score, pretty well 90 walking to that midfield. So if he keeps doing that, and we talked about before the lack of forward options for us, can Powell get close enough to being, top 6? And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I could have had this guy at 312. And he became like a top. Every year there's some guy that comes from nowhere. And this guy was a gun junior, like won the South Australia best player in his under 18 year, just racked up the ball for fun. So yeah, it's just about getting opportunities. Getting that opportunity. He's been in the system 4 years now. So yeah, he high draft pick. He could definitely be a guy this year. And I'm not saying he necessarily has to go 105, 110 like those superstar midfielders, but yeah, if you're banana number 2 in there, why couldn't he go 95, 90, anything like that? And that's a bargain basement. So I don't think he's maybe as important as Massimo, just for the fact that there is that potential where he only makes sort of the 100K, where I think Massimo's got the way bigger range of cash cow. But if you can get both of them in, I think it's handy, because I think worst case scenario is Powell might make the same amount of cash as Carroll or Sharp anyway. And I think that's worst case. Best case, yeah, he could become a keeper. Alrighty, I'm trying to flow through these guys. What are we at? 7:15. So we've got about 10 minutes here before we'll watch some footy. Hey Hayden, is it worth using a boost to go Martin to Ryan, or Sexton Berry to Carroll? If so, which one? Like Martin's still going to be decent enough, and we know he's going to get defender status, so probably Sexton Berry to. I'm saying it's a bit hypocritical, so I did trade Martin out last week, but I traded Martin to Sarong, so I feel not too bad about that long term. I'd probably still relying, maybe it's probably Berry to Carroll, just because you can get that initial, like you're going to get the 80K from Berry down to Carroll, plus you're going to get probably 100 to 110K from Carroll anyway. Like that's not too bad. Where, you know, how close could Martin get to Ryan? Like Ryan's not going to keep doing this ridiculous average. Like he still could be top, as I said, I feel like he's top 6, top 3, could average 105 to 110, no problems. But Martin could still go 100, like from this point on. It's not out of the question there. See, it's like 10 points. So what are you really getting from that trade? Is it really enough to go, Martin's finding the ball. That's not his problem. He's just butchering it. So if I had the choice, I'll take the cash cow. Hey again, Cal. Well, my current trades are Young, Martin, and Berry out for Heaney, Powell, Winghager. Could potentially do Sarong, Powell, Winghager, or Butters, Powell, Bramble. I don't know if I'm 100% on the Bramble. Like they've got a lot of mouths. He looks good, but maybe just go the solid 50 cash cow. What's the other of it? Heaney. I don't mind I like the Butters, Powell, pink. I think that's a bit better. Winghagen, I'm pretty sure Grimo, if he's still on, will sit there and say, don't pick Winghagen, because the guy's going to tag. So even if it was Heaney, Powell, and maybe a rookie and bank the cash, like there's no issue with banking cash. I was looking at somebody today. Somebody messaged me today, said they've banked like 450K for next week, and they're just going to load up on Suns and Giants next week. Not the worst move. If you know your team's going to score reasonably well this week anyway, or you think it's going to score reasonably well, and you've been able to bank cash, and you don't actually have many players out, and you've got the money next week to go bang bang and get 2 gun, probably more Giants, but maybe it's a Mill and Whitfield, or whoever out, what combination you want. No, nothing wrong with banking cash. Like I'm on that debate. I was going to bank cash, but because I can keep Wines can become Flanders if need be. So that's my cash right there. But you need a plan if you don't have some of these guys. Teeth, thanks, no problems. Out Gibcus and Caulfield. Yep. In Massimo and Pink. Yep. Solid enough. Yep, that's fine. Definitely. Stephen, is getting both Sarong and Ryan worth it? In for Wines and Martin already have mass and can afford Powell with a boost. Yeah, that's fine. Like it's not the I'm bigger on Sarong, but yeah, like that's fine. Like Martin, Wines, as I said, the Martin Ryan thing, not as much. But definitely Wines. If you've got the money to go Wines to Sarong for sure, and if you can afford Powell, yeah. I don't know. The only thing if Martin to Ryan is if your backline is completely decimated and you definitely need that defender, then it probably does change things a little bit. A little bit like my defense at the moment. It's really being held together by 2 premiums, 2 mid prices, and then 4 absolute spud rookies. But best 18 this week, so I can get through to it. Grimo, there is no one in the community that gives such detailed responses. Thanks, Grimo. Appreciate it, mate. Corey, how are you, mate? He's a North man. Should be probably answering some of these North questions for me, mate. Thoughts on Windsor to Powell, Young to Massimo, Sheasel in for Wines. Yeah, have to miss out on the Dempsey, Carroll, Sharp. Yeah, I don't mind missing out on those. Like the other rookies are going to come along anyway. There'll be Darcy next week. You get on. And this is the problem. You start loading up on too many rookies this week. I see like some people sending me their teams. They DM me their teams. And I'm looking at it and going, there is no physical way they can get in Darcy next week. If Darcy towers up West Coast and does what he did against the Suns last week, where's the answer there? Like, it's like, okay, who are you going to go? And who would I rather? Like Sam Darcy or maybe, Carroll for a few weeks. I'm probably taking Darcy. Like he looks so good. And, what was he, number 2 draft pick? Kid's great. Buku, yeah, that's why I picked him. Job security. I like his job security because they've got no one else. They've got a ton of forwards, ton of mids that don't have defenders. And he actually looked really good. Got off the ground, kicked a big goal to intercept Mark. He's getting better and better with each game. I'm really happy I picked Buku. The whole idea of him was just going to be my F8. But yeah, handy cover this week comes on. Hopefully scores another sort of 60, 65. And the fact is, the other thing I love about Buku is he will get defender status. That's just another one. I love it. Callum, Chris, Sub, and McRae named on ball. Interesting. Yep, I hadn't actually seen that. Love the fact that you guys update me with this stuff in the group chats. So Chris, I don't think I've got him in any drafts, so I don't need to worry about that. Finlay McRae. It'd be interesting that first bounce if that's the case, but if that's how they've named it, you'd gather so. Oof. What is Finlay at the moment? Because he is a forward. So what has Finlay done this season? It's a great point because I know a couple of people have mentioned the fact his break even is 46. So it's not like he's got the 28 and the 12. So what's the worst? Like if he goes 50, he keeps his price. So if McRae went 70, goes up 9K, 90, it's 18K. So I can definitely hold. Like if he got a 70 and went up, and I had to pay 160 for him next week, and he looked like the role, and they're going to back him in, I'm happy paying the extra. I'd rather just watch and see what happens. What do we got? Sean just tuned in. What do we do with Sam Berry? Yeah. So I'm that's getting reversed. So maybe Tom Berry comes back in, Fife, but I don't know if I can work it with the amount of cash that I have there because I can't even see where my cash is at the moment. But but Sam Berry's getting reversed. That floor can go. Fozzie, thanks, mate. Yeah, happy Easter to everyone. I am working all 4 days of my Easter, so yeah, it's gonna be fun. Gonna be floating around on the old Metro network. Chris, what do you got for us here? Nice for you to reference me as someone you really respect. Mate, I love you, brother. You know that, mate. Marcus, apologize if it's been asked. No, not a problem. Is it worth out there? Like Grimo and I were exploring the idea of Tom Green trading out, and the group chats that we're in were like wanting to rip our heads off. But there is a little bit of logic to that. You're going to want Dacos back. Like the guy's going to be a superstar, but I can understand why people are considering it because the potential that he's going to drop cash, but not only drop cash, but what is if he gets tagged next week? Like that 54 is going to be in his cycle. He does have the buy. Like he has a great record against the Lions. Like last year he came 151. He'd be so frustrated if he comes and does that. But Brisbane Hawthorn, like if he goes 100, he drops 60K. So you kind of pick him back up at 560. If it's worse than that and he drops another stinker, you are laughing. If you're one of the people that didn't start Dacos, brilliant. Like I don't think I could have bypassed him after he went 130. But if he goes sub 100 this week, you are absolutely laughing. And then you can just pick him up after his bye for Anzac Day, maybe at 560, maybe at 550. So if it means getting in Sarong, I don't mind that so much because Sarong could tear Adelaide a new one. He looks awesome, but it's not like you just need to plan. You can't do this with too many players because you're going to get injuries. You're going to have other players trade out. But for now, I don't mind that so much if you're going to do that. Just because if he didn't have the buy, I'd be like, not happening. But with the buy, it's not such a thing. Chris, Yo only 70% time and ground, and that's the other part. And the reason is it's just his body. There's no way they're going to Yo now. Have 80, 85% because they know they'll just break him. Michael, at the moment, it looks like Dacos, Stewart, Sheasel, and Ryan are the top 6, and with Sicily and Sinclair potentially dropping. Thoughts on? I don't mind. Like I like Nasai. I think he's maybe top 10. I don't think he's top 6. The question is, can he get close enough? I feel like with his price, he needs to get within 10 points of those top 6, any of them. It doesn't matter which one, but if you think he can get within 10 points of one of them, so if all those guys are averaging, 105 to 110, he's got to get to 100. Realistically, you're thinking he's getting to 100 at his price. He needs to get to 100. And so what are you giving up each week? 10 points. But then it's the question of what are you doing with that? What is that cash allowed you to do? And it's not so bad at this point of the season, but that 10 points might come costly as the season goes on. Whitfield, we know he's got the potential to do it as well. So they're both good, but you don't want to be in a situation later in the year. This is where it gets hard. So I don't mind the idea of Nasai now too, because the extra trades, you could definitely ride him to the buy and then reassess. And if it was a case where Sicily or Sinclair, more Sicily dropped to 540 and Nasai was around the same, but Nasai, it got to the point when Nasai was giving up 5-10 points to those guys, you could potentially use a trade to then bring in one of those top 6 guys. But for now, I think Nasai, he's got the role. It's looking great. And yeah, you'd be happy to, you can ride it definitely to the buys and then just reassess there. So yeah, no problems with him. Pink overhaul, yes. I'm still I'm not upset that I've got Hall, but yeah, he's fine. If I had the extra trades, if I had 6 trades this week I could make, I'd probably get Pink. Powell, Dempsey, Butters, Sarong, or Powell, Mass, Steele. Powell, Dempsey, Butters. But then Mass. Oh God, pass. Can you do, even if it's not Powell, or can you do Powell? Can it be Powell? And why can't it be? I'm trying to think. Is there no, because you need the money. It's not going to work. I don't really like saying to people give up Mass. Could it just be Mass, Butters, and then not Powell? Could it be Dempsey, Mass, Butters? And I'd rather you skip on Powell and probably get Mass. Thoughts on Riley Bonner's role with the midfield? Yeah. But everyone keeps telling me that Sinclair's going to push into midfield. Like Bonner's, there's bigger issues than Bonner at the moment. You can definitely ride him for now and see what happens. It's not like he's going to start losing cash right away. So keep him for now. Have a look. Definitely. Samson Ryan, I hope you are the gun himself, but what have you got for us? I've gone short to Sarong. I really hope you are, because trading out Shorty, that's great. Yep, and Sexton to Hoare. Don't really, unless you can do Sexton maybe to Pink, but don't have another way to get into Dempsey and Carroll. Yeah, so unfortunately, there's rookies we're not going to get, but other rookies going to get. Is Sexton a worry? Potentially. The worry is if he gets sort of moved around. I think we can just sort of hold, reassess again. I'm kind of debating a little bit between him and Tom Berry, but now that Sam Berry's out, that'll change things for me. But it's Sexton away. Yeah, it kind of is. One less. What a bloke. Will 40 ever win a draft? Not again, mate. Not again. Too many good people in our drafts, mate. And on draft, so last week I said get Tom Marshall. This week, Will Haywood playing the Tigers forward. He's been appearing in a few. I did see Liam Henry in a couple. That was interesting. Don't know why he's doing on waivers in a couple of leagues there. Who else did we pick up? So, Josh Battle as well was appearing. Like most people usually pick them up, but yeah, Will Haywood's one that you scroll down. Even Henry from Geelong playing against the Hawks, not a bad little one for this week. Like I like to stream forward, so I'm looking at the teams who probably can give up some good points. Like look what Fritsch did last week to the Hawks. So yeah, there's a couple of potential options there. What's your plan now that Berry's dropped? Yeah. It's Sam Berry's getting kicked down, just depending on who I'm reversing it for, but he's going. Wanless, how many redheads are acceptable in a super coach side? You're allowed one, isn't it? Isn't that what the No Homers Club always says? You're allowed one. Jack Christmas sub, thank you so much. We'll take a couple more questions because we're going to finish off. Banana, take a shot. Yeah, good. Is there a point where we're getting dropping Wines to Powell? Yeah, no, like I'd keep Wines. Potentially another better option opens up. I don't think that's worth a trade. If Darcy goes 60 this week, he's a must, isn't? Yeah, yeah, if Darcy's in the team, name next week and goes at least 60, it's too hard to avoid. So, and this is the problem if you go and get sort of Dempsey or you've got no other options. And the couple forward lines I've seen, there is no other option. So that makes it hard. Was tempted to go Dawson to Sarong, but we'll hold. Beautiful. Yep, go you Catters. Looking, Naismith is an extended late. Yeah, it'd be interesting because he is an extended, but I don't see him keeping his spot, mate. So beautiful. Thank you so much for everybody tuning in. Good luck this week. Have a great Easter, and hopefully we get on for some great footy. Thanks, guys. Talk soon. Bye.